Thank you, Bob. And now I would like to introduce a very special guest, Liesl Clark, who's Director of Michigan's Department of Environment, Great Lakes, and Energy, and she's speaking here on behalf of Governor Whitmer. Liesl?
Well, I am so fortunate to welcome you not only to the beautiful city of Detroit, but to the great state of Michigan on behalf of Governor Whitmer. We're so excited that you're here. Many of you are aware we are home of four of the 5 Great Lakes, which results in 20% of the fresh water that exists in the world right here in Michigan. We have more than 3,000 miles of shoreline, and in our 83 counties, you are no more than 7 miles from a body of water, no matter where you are in our beautiful state. So we're so excited to have this climate conversation here, and I hope to echo some of the comments of my previous speakers that you get a chance to really enjoy not only the state, but also the city. We are celebrating a lot of things in Michigan right now. Certainly, as we all are, celebrating the 50th anniversary of Earth Day. You might be aware that Michigan played a key role in the early Earth Day, the first Earth Day, with our partners in DC and across the country. We're also celebrating a lot of other things that happened in 1970, including the National Environmental Policy Act, the creation of Sleeping Bear Dunes National Lakeshore. If you haven't been there, you definitely should check it out. The EPA officially took effect, the Clean Air Act, and then very important to us, the Michigan Environmental Protection Act. On top of those anniversaries, there's also anniversaries from 1980, including a conversation at the University of Michigan. I am a Spartan, but there are some wonderful things that my counteracting school down the road does from time to time. University of Michigan held a conference in 1980 that put on the map the conversation about environmental justice and really started that discussion that then escalated from there at EPA. So back in the day, climate change was a novel conversation and not at the forefront of all that we do as it is now. But it really is around our mission of protecting public health and the environment, key and vital to everything that we do. This administration, under the direction of Governor Whitmer, has taken bold steps to move Michigan forward on climate. And I want to talk to you a bit about what we're doing to think about how are we protecting our 10 million bosses, as I like to call them, and how we're thinking not only about the adaptation issues and the stress issues that are caused by climate, but also equity and ensuring that low-income residents and communities of color are provided with the tools to both adapt to climate effects and that they'll benefit from climate initiatives like clean jobs and green infrastructure. So what's happening on climate in Michigan? Well, there are some tenets that we all abide by, and one of the first ones that I'm sure you'll talk about here in the next couple of days is that climate's local. So it's about what's really going on in the communities, cities, and places that we live. It's about city work, it's about urban and rural work together. And we talk about climate commitments, and we talk about big numbers, and we talk about big goals. And a lot of times we think about big cities and big progress that's happening. However, okay, did everybody learn the Michigan map? Get out your Michigan map. In tiny little Northport, which is way up at the tip of the pinky, over there by Sleeping Bear Dunes, tiny little Northport is about 500 people, and that is a very small village with a commitment to 100% renewable energy. So it's not just about our big cities, it's also about our small rural areas and about lifting up all that work that's happening and creating more momentum. It certainly is about beautiful Grand Rapids, Ann Arbor, and even here in the city of Detroit, the sustainability commitments and the climate initiatives that have been started here. But our goal is to lift up all that local climate work. Climate is definitely about mobility. So in the city and the state that put the world on wheels, when we think about where emissions are going, and we all know that the transportation sector has surpassed other sectors in terms of global emissions, part of this solution has to be a mobility solution. Michigan is at the forefront of advanced mobility and is taking the entire world along with us as we move forward. When we talk about mobility in Michigan, we talk about automated, we talk about shared, we talk about connected, and we talk about electrified. Governor Whitmer just a couple of weeks ago announced the Office of Advanced Mobility and Electrification, and all of those pieces need to come together in order to move us to where we need to go for climate reasons as well as for advanced mobility reasons. Climate is about building infrastructure that will weather the future. We have so many infrastructure challenges, particularly in a state that was industrialized early. And when we do that rebuild, we want to do it in a smart way. We want to build smart cities. We want to host it on the core of Internet of Things. And in the course of doing that, it's got to connect to our advanced mobility solutions to really move us forward. Climate is about protecting our Great Lakes. The one thing that you'll hear from all of us Midwesterners, particularly from those of us in Michigan, is how committed we are to our 20% of the world's fresh water. Lake Superior, one of our largest lakes, is actually one of the fastest warming lakes on the planet. When we think about impacts to cold water trout streams, we look at the challenges of harmful algal blooms, and then we look at the increase in crop killing pests on farms. We know that we have to think about this in a holistic way. And in fact, we're seeing a magnification of level changes, of water level changes in Michigan right now. We've gone from the record low to record high levels in record time in our state. We are at the longest 1 year, 3 year, and 5 year wettest period on record, and we just got done with the wettest September to December on record. So what does that mean? It means that the Great Lakes are at all-time highs. It means our groundwater is fully saturated. It means our lakes and streams, our inland lakes and streams are fully saturated. So when we have simple storm events, it's a really big deal. When we have those record storm events that we all know are happening more regularly, it is devastating. And it's not just about homes that are falling into the lake. While that is absolutely a private property concern that we're really animate about and making sure we're supporting the improvements that have to happen to help those folks, it's also about infrastructure challenges. It's about wastewater treatment plants. It's about the $100 million estimate that our MDOT has made for the 40 road projects that they have that are already having challenges because of water infrastructure. It's also about agriculture. In Michigan, we're the second most diverse agriculture state in the nation, and we plant around 10 million acres. Last year, we didn't plant 920,000 acres, so about 1%. This year, we think it'll be even more, and it was because of how saturated our state is. So it's an economic issue as well. Climate is about health and quality of life. We all know that we have challenges when it comes to public health impacts from climate, not only urban heat islanding effect and consequences for our cities disproportionately impacting our low-income and communities of color, but also, as I mentioned earlier, flooding challenges that come from climate, and vector-borne illnesses like Lyme disease, West Nile virus, and certainly Triple E. When we think about priorities around health and climate, we think about respiratory diseases, we think about heat illnesses, we think about those waterborne diseases, vector-borne diseases, and certainly injury and CO2 poisoning from extreme weather events, or the outcome of having these extreme weather events and needing to react to them. So what are we doing about all of this? Well, in Michigan, we're all about action. Out of the gate, Governor Whitmer, when she signed the executive order that created the Department of Environment, Great Lakes, and Energy, she also signed Michigan up to be part of the U.S. Climate Alliance. She also created the Office of Climate and Energy, and Dr. Brandy Brown will be with us here in a couple, or will be with you here as part of the agenda. The state has also been working at the governor's direction on lead by example activities and paralleling what other states are doing and trying to move it forward so that we're making sure that we've done our own work internally first. We're also modeling to inform our next steps. So how do we think about what are the impacts of emissions statewide? So not just from a state of Michigan, not from a government perspective, but more broadly from there. Michigan Public Service Commission has seen 2 new commissioners that started. Dan Scripps started about a year ago, and then Tremaine Phillips in the fall. There's been the statewide energy assessment since then. The Michigan Power Grid, for those of you that are interested in the intricacies of utility markets and how we're transitioning, that's an interesting thing to go look at on their website. In June of last year, the governor created the UP Energy Task Force, and I've had the opportunity to lead that effort. The first recommendation that will come from that group shortly will be about if there was a propane disruption to the Upper Peninsula, but then the second recommendation will be looking more broadly at what can we do to think about how to influence our Upper Peninsula? For those of you that aren't as familiar with Michigan, the UP has over 13 just on the electricity side, energy suppliers, which results in some areas them having the third highest rates in the nation behind Alaska and Hawaii. So it's geographically very spread out, and it has a very low population, making it a tough to serve environment. So that's been an interesting component of how do we make sure we're serving all of our constituents here in the state. And then there's a litany of legislation that's been ongoing, as well as administrative actions to remove barriers and streamline permitting. And you've already heard a little bit about some of the commitments that our utility partners have been making in the state, including DTE's 100% carbon neutral goal by 2050 and consumers' net zero carbon emissions by 2040. And I don't have enough time, but I'd love to talk to you even more about some of the EV infrastructure work that we're doing in state and the electric school buses, some of the kind of really cool projects that get a lot of attention and activity from those future generations. So all of this adds up to real progress for Michigan, and we are super excited that this conference has chosen to be here today. With that, I just wanted to let you know that I appreciate the chance to come here and be with you, and again, sharing with you the governor's regrets. I talked to her this morning, and she said that she was really excited about this conference and about the lineup. So thank you so much, and I hope you have a great event.